A bipartisan coalition of senators is pushing for divestment from China. Let's welcome Senator Marco Rubio of Florida. He's helping lead this move away from Chinese stocks. The senator is a member of the Foreign Relations, Intelligence, and Small Business Committees. And Senator, thanks for being here today. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
I want to talk to you about divestment from China, but first I'd like to ask you some broader questions about these trade talks with China. Just given what we're seeing today, I know that you've been very hawkish on this. We've heard from a lot of companies today, Caterpillar and Boeing, talking about how the trade talks have really impacted their business. We had the Honeywell CEO on earlier today. He said he's hoping to see some sort of deal get cut down the road. What do you say to those business leaders, multinational companies, that are struggling as we continue this fight?
Yeah, if you think the trade talks are impacting your business, wait till one of China's companies puts you out of business because they've joint ventured with you, they've stolen your intellectual property, they've reversed engineered it, and now, subsidized by the government, they're undercutting you all over the world. Look, I'm not in favor of divesting the U.S. from China. I'm not in favor of divorcing China, but I do think we have to recalibrate and rebalance our relationship. We have a 30, 20-year practice here of basically assuming that once China got rich, once China got prosperous, that they would behave more like us. That's not been the case. You see that they are actively subsidizing industries that they want to displace us and dominate the world market, and it ranges from the construction of rail to heavy equipment to pharmaceuticals to high tech. So there has to be a recalibration and a rebalancing from a geopolitical perspective and, of course, for our national interest.
Do you trust the Chinese just in terms of what we've seen so far with this deal we think we may have with them, the first tranche of it?
I don't think we do have a deal with them in the first tranche. If you look at the statements that have come out, it's been very difficult to get the Chinese to admit that they agreed to what has been reported they agreed to. So they're going to, look, they're going to try to get away with what they can get away with, and I do believe that they will agree to things that they don't intend to comply with. They made all kinds of agreements about the kind of relationship with Hong Kong they would have, and they're clearly violating that.
What do you think the next step should be? We should get tougher on these things, or try and come to some sort of peaceful détente?
Yeah, look, we're trying to rewrite, or we're trying to recalibrate a 25-year pattern here. It's not going to be easy. There is going to be some market pain. There's no doubt about it. They're experiencing it as well. But what's the alternative? The alternative is some short-term, continuation of the status quo, but long-term, it's devastating for the country. My job is to act in the best interest of the United States of America, not just today, but 15, 20, 30 years from now.
Senator, let's talk about the move that you're taking right now, just in terms of divestment. There's a letter that you have written to the Federal Retirement Thrift Investment Board. You don't want to see indexes be allowed to willy-nilly put Chinese companies into these indexes and, I guess, find a way around what you think is supporting companies that should be on do not do business with list.
Yeah, think about that. I mean, there are Chinese companies subsidized by the Chinese government, supported by unfair Chinese practices in their domestic industry, underbidding, undercutting our companies and stealing intellectual property, and we are helping capitalize them with the dollars of federal employees. And I think that's a problem in the broader economy, where you have other indexes that are listing Chinese companies, and those indexes, that they include companies that are sanctioned by the U.S., companies involved in egregious human rights violations. But the most outrageous is that federal employees, including members of the House and Senate, your retirement dollars are helping capitalize companies that are actively trying to put American industry out of business forever and displace it.
You've specifically targeted MCSI. They're a global index provider. What have you heard back from that company?
Well, we got a letter back. They didn't really answer most of our questions, but what they did admit to is that they don't do any sort of vetting in terms of the companies that are being invested in. So they're not comparing their list of investments to companies that are sanctioned by the United States or the international community, companies that are actively involved in egregious human rights violations like Hikvision, that's been actively involved in the sort of surveillance technology that's used to jail and kill Muslims, Uyghur Muslims in the Xinjiang province as part of a broader anti-Muslim, anti-religion campaign that the Chinese Communist Party is undertaking. So at a minimum, there should be some disclosure there about that reality.
They, I think in another interview, had pointed out that they're not breaking any laws. What do you say to that?
Yeah, and I think that's interesting. Maybe the law should change, but beyond it, I think that gets back to the broader point, and that is, these are companies, these are individuals that benefit from all the freedoms and all the opportunities the United States of America provides in our free and open market. But at the same time, they believe that they have no moral obligation or national obligation to do the bare minimum to act in our national interest. I simply disagree with that. I mean, and I think that our policy should reflect that.
What do you think you have in terms of the likelihood of being able to change that law? What kind of support do you have in the Senate and the House?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're not going to be reckless about it. We were hoping that we could sort of nudge the industry in the right direction on some of these things. But ultimately, we're going to be careful in thinking about what it is we can do from a legislative standpoint. I think oftentimes people rush to write legislation and it has unintended consequences. But it does have, the concept has strong bipartisan support. And so we're going to continue to work on it with our partners across the other side of the aisle and in the other in the House and see what progress we can make on it.
All right, Senator Rubio, I want to thank you for your time. It's good to see you.
Thank you.